Number 4, the idea that paying for online gaming is stupid. Sure, you don't pay for online gaming on PC, but there's also no such thing as Xbox Game Pass on PC. I mean, unless you get the PC version of Xbox Game Pass, but that costs money there too. PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass are both incredible value deals.
You bitch. You did it. Stupid, stupid bitch doesn't even know.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming all of you 12-year-old and 14-year-olds out there that watch me are pretty fucking excited right now. Daddy Frit's going after the console peasants. It's about time. None of these topical videos that Papa Frit actually has some passion for. We like it when he gets raw and dirty with the filthy peasants. Well, I'm glad some of you are excited, because I'm certainly not. Watching these videos gives me cancer. There's been some tumors forming around my popsicle stick, and you guys gotta help. And I'll tell you how you can help. By going straight to Papa Frit's Patreon and becoming a member, where you'll get access to some exclusive audio content and early access to videos like this one. But maybe my videos aren't enough for you. Maybe you want to see the peasants and their natural habitat being as stupid as ever. Well, then follow me on Twitter, where I go back and forth with them a lot. And the peasantry is just mind-boggling. You'll love it. And if you guys want to get together and make memes out of me and ridicule my channel and how much you hate me, I have a Discord for that. And you're always guaranteed one reply from the sexy popsicle stick man, so head over there. Now, we here at FritangaPlays, and when I say we, I mean me and my popsicle stick. We're known for going after, I guess what you may call, the small fry. And there's a reason for that. Very few of the peasants featured on this channel have ever gone anywhere with their channel. Some never even reached 100 subscribers. And then there has been few times where Papa Frit has gone for bigger fish, like Review Tech USA, a big fish. But there's a reason for that. That reason being that most of the big channels out there are smart enough not to say retarded shit. Most of them have some common knowledge. Most of them know that they shouldn't argue with their bias, that their opinions are not factual, and if they try to argue in the favor of a console over a PC, 99% of the time, it doesn't go well for them. So, enter GameRanx. Now for me personally, I consider GameRanx to be a pretty decent channel. Their Before You Buy series is pretty informative, well structured, and straight to the point, which is why I find this video to be strange. I've never imagined a channel of this size and reputation would make a video this bad. What's even more surprising is the amount of people who don't recognize how shit the video is. But thankfully, Daddy Frit is here. I'm the hero we don't deserve. Well, more like the hero we don't want. I'm quite cancerous. But GameRanx, you done fucked up. You made a bad video, and now it's up to me to fix it for you. Maybe you'll hire me as an editor after this, or maybe you'll sue me, I don't know. Let's start.
There's quite a lot of stereotypes around console gaming. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, 10 console gaming myths debunked.
Now from the beginning, this video should honestly be titled 10 Myths About Console Gaming I Made Up to Have an Argument Against, because the majority of the myths he's about to tell us, I've personally never heard from PC gamers. Obviously, he wasn't going to make a video where he debunks actual points against consoles because he would lose and this video would get even more dislikes. But don't worry, that doesn't stop him from saying some stupid shit. A professional video maker looking like a child near the end of the video is what we're about to see.
Number 10, consoles don't get the equivalent of Steam sales.
Now, if you listen carefully to the way he worded that, he says the equivalent of Steam sales. It's important to note that.
But the truth is, if you need to find a console game cheap, there are absolutely Steam-like sales, sometimes with extreme discounts. Now, does it happen as often as Steam sales? That's probably a little bit more grounded of a question to ask.
And there you go, just like that, he didn't debunk the myth. Because if the sales truly were equivalent, they would happen as frequent as we see them on Steam. But they don't. In order for it to be equivalent, not only will the price have to match, but also the frequency of those sales. You won't see these big AAA games going on sale all that often on the PlayStation Network, and especially on the Nintendo Switch. Are there sales on consoles? Of course. I don't think anybody has ever said that there aren't. But to say there is an equivalence here is not true. The sales just don't happen as often. And this isn't even including the required membership fee to get certain discounts either. It's not the same. Steam sales are free all around. And there are free sales on consoles as well, but sometimes to get that extra discount, you have to pay a membership fee. There is no equivalence here.
But they do happen. And sure, like I said, it doesn't necessarily happen as often, but to outright say that these things don't happen on consoles is wrong.
Well, that's strange because I thought that the myth originally was that there was no equivalent of Steam sales on consoles. Now the myth is that there isn't any at all?
It's not even really a matter of keeping your eyes open either, because Steam sales are so frequent. It's just a matter of more retail-like frequency on the consoles.
Okay, so you do recognize that they're not equivalent. Therefore, your myth wasn't debunked, and I don't think it's a myth that actually exists to begin with, because you started off with an argument of equivalence, and then you turn it into an argument of existence. Something tells me that while you were recording this video, you probably read that out of emotion, and I know for a fact you did because your emotion starts to slowly seep in throughout this video. You begin to go full peasant, and I'm disappointed.
Number 9, the myth that controllers just automatically suck. 'Cause mouse and keyboard, guys.
And what I tell you, just like that, the emotion starts to seep through. The myth that controllers automatically suck because keyboard and mouse is better. Now this is something new to me. The myth I always heard was that controllers suck at first-person shooters, and you'd have a hard time trying to debunk that myth. So instead you created another myth, one that was easier to argue against, and one that made you seem smarter.
It's like, I am not going to sit here and tell you that for a first-person shooter, the majority of people can at least eventually do better with a mouse and keyboard. That doesn't stop people from using controllers like crazy on Steam.
And I do like how you're not even going to mention battle royales, MMOs, MOBAs, top-down strategy games. I mean, you gotta pick that one genre. And even then, you don't want to get into that one genre, and you're very dismissive about the actual fact, and that is that the keyboard and the mouse is very dominant in first-person shooter games. Your bias is clearly showing. You don't want to even touch the topic because it bothers you. I hear it in the tone of your voice. I hear it in how smug you are, but do carry on.
According to data Valve released, there are millions upon millions of Steam users that are specifically using console controllers on Steam.
These stats don't mean shit. I mean, they're pretty to look at. It's very interesting to see. Hell, I had no idea that over 200,000 people used the Rock Band instrument on the PC. But these stats are meaningless because showing how many people use a controller wouldn't even debunk the myth you made up to begin with. Showing how many people use an input device doesn't mean that input device doesn't suck, nor does it even debunk that keyboard and mouse is the better control scheme.
So many that it is impossible to ignore the idea that for a lot of people, a controller is just a more fun way to play.
Is it because it's the more fun way to play? Or is it because sometimes keyboard controls may suck for that specific game? Or maybe that specific game was solely designed just to be used on a controller? Or maybe people like using them for emulators? And that still wouldn't debunk the made-up myth that controllers suck because keyboard and mouse is better. Certain games are designed for a specific input device, and then some games are designed for both. And right now, there are simply more genres that are specifically made for keyboard and mouse, because that's the more favorable control option and scheme for those games. So trying to debunk this made-up myth by showing that there's lots of people on the PC that use controllers is meaningless. It doesn't debunk anything.
I realize that there are a lot of people that play games for competitive reasons or to even become a professional, and I understand why that type of person wouldn't like a controller. But keeping in mind that the majority of all of the rest of us play games for fun, it makes sense that if we think something is more fun, we're gonna use it. A lot of people happen to think controllers are more fun. It is all a matter of personal taste.
Once again, is it because they think it's more fun, or is it because sometimes that's the only option they have for certain games on consoles? Is it maybe because certain games on the PC are better suited for a controller, because maybe the keyboard and mouse control scheme wasn't done right? At this point, you're just wasting your breath because you're not even doing a good job of debunking the myth.
And just using controllers on a game console doesn't automatically make game consoles or controllers bad.
Like, is this even an argument that exists? No, of course controllers being an input method that is used on consoles doesn't make them bad or make the controller bad. Being the sole input device is what makes consoles bad.
Also, Microsoft is working on mouse and keyboard support for their consoles, so it's fair to assume that Sony will probably follow with that, because now they're letting their players play Fortnite with other players, and supposedly their experience is superior. That's why they didn't let them in the first place. So, we'll see.
Gee, you bringing that up just goes to show you that controllers are not enough as the sole input device. There is a demand for keyboard and mouse on the consoles, because there are certain genres and certain games that will play and control better for them. It's almost as if in some aspects, controllers do suck. But never mind that, because this isn't even a console myth. Controllers sucking isn't a myth against the consoles, because controllers are also used on PCs. Controllers can signify both console gaming and PC gaming. This made-up myth was stupid to begin with. You clearly didn't think it through.
Number 8, porting a game to consoles is easy. This, of course, makes the huge mistake of assuming that programming is easy. Programming is not easy. Programming is a skill that takes many years to develop.
Oh gee, thank you. I didn't know. I didn't know. You're so informative. So knowledgeable.
For instance, Skyrim was notoriously weird on the PlayStation 3. It didn't run well, and doing certain things interacted in a bad way with how the PlayStation 3 handled memory. They had to do a lot of stuff to fix that, and it was specific to the PlayStation 3. I mean, if we want to talk about how hard it is to port something, we can't not mention Arkham Knight.
Why are we even mentioning ports? Oh, that's right. The myth was that console ports are easy. This is a myth I've never really heard. Obviously, with the struggling performance that some games have on consoles, it's clearly not easy to port them. With the tons of games that are solely on PC, due to control schemes and the graphical intensity of those games, porting to console would be hard. Where are you getting these myths?
Which ran really good on consoles, but like ass on the computer.
I mean, if you're okay with the performance on consoles, I mean, I guess you could consider it good, I don't know.
We've talked about how and why, and it has as much to do with the budget and what the staff is allowed to do as it does hardware, but a port is a port is a port, and is always going to have its own unique difficulties, console or PC.
Well, that was a completely useless myth to even try to debunk, nor is it one that I even think exists. It's not even a myth that's in the favor of a console, so I have no idea what the point of this was.
Number 7, the myth that all console players are kids.
I like to let people talk who like to talk. It makes it easier to find out how full of shit they are.
Really? You're doing this? You're actually trying to make up this myth. My god. I see you're trying to fight in favor of the consoles by making this video. And in order to do that, you have to make up these myths, these points, these arguments, and it's completely stupid. And you look like a retard.
Oh, what? Sorry, but I've got a Nintendo Switch, and I play it more than most kids do. And I know that I am not vaguely special for this. In fact, I'm probably on the lower end of the spectrum of the adults playing Switch timescale. The Nintendo Switch has frankly given us a way to play full-on, real-ass video games anytime and anywhere, whether it be on the train or in bed. And it's obviously not just the Switch. Adults actually have lives outside of work and their kids. Adults have interests that can range from movies to music to video games? What a shock.
Now, I've watched your video in its entirety, and I know this isn't even close to the stupidest myth you make up in the video, but by God, was this just awful. It was bad. There's no way in hell anybody would ever believe that myth exists. And even if it does, there'd be no points in debunking it because nobody would believe it. Clearly nobody thinks console gamers are all kids. Nobody would believe that when games like Roblox and Minecraft are insanely popular on the PC. People aren't that stupid. The only stupidity I see here is from you thinking people would be stupid enough to believe this myth exists. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't.
Number 6, the idea that there's way less or even no social communities like on PC gaming.
At this point in the video, I knew this guy was full of shit. This isn't a myth that exists at all. Nobody has ever made this myth. No fucking way. And if they did, maybe it was one guy. This myth cannot possibly exist. Everybody knows there are communities dedicated to Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo, and they're widely accepted. Of course, there are console gaming communities. Their existence has been known since the beginning. There's no way a myth around this could ever have formed. You're full of shit. You're just fucking wasting your breath at this point. This isn't even a point that exists. Nobody believes this. Literally nobody.
Just because there's communities built into every Steam page doesn't mean Steam is the only place that communities exist. In fact, just saying that should sound pretty absurd automatically. Reddit itself is filled with gaming communities, many of which are very console specific. Many are game specific, and those games might be exclusive to a console.
Yeah, and if we're quite frank, some of those are extremely cancerous, and they know who they are.
Frankly, this one is debunkable by Google search, and yet it persists pretty hard. Why is that?
It persists very hard. Really does it. This is the first time I've ever heard of this myth. Down in the comments section, tell me, is this the first time you've heard this myth? There is no way this myth could exist simultaneously with the internet. It's just not possible.
Number 5, you can't or shouldn't play MMOs on a console.
Finally, we reach a myth that I have heard that does exist. Now I am interested in you debunking it, which honestly shouldn't be that hard.
If you've ever played Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn, which didn't start off great, but was a realm that got reborn, it turns out it's not only possible, but pretty good to play MMOs on console, at least when console conventions are actually looked at as part of the equation. If you have a bunch of endlessly complicated menus on an MMO, it's not going to work that great on a controller. But if it's optimized for a controller, in theory, you could have a lot of very interesting stuff. This of course brings up the debate of controller versus mouse and keyboard, which I think we've already said enough about. It's just different things. And MMOs on console are in some ways a little bit different, but a lot of them are really good and definitely worth checking out.
You see, was that so hard? Was it so hard to be factual and full of information and knowledge and truth? Was it so hard to find a legit myth instead of making up one? I just don't understand, because this is the only part of the video that really stands out as good. And it's probably the only part of the video I will agree with you on. There are great MMOs on consoles. Some MMOs transition pretty well on console. Of course, not all the time, but some do. Now, you could argue that MMOs are much better on a PC and much better suited for a PC, and probably the better place to play them overall. But if the myth is that they're not good on the console, that's simply not true. So good on you, GameRanx. In a sea of lies, you told some truth.
Number 4, the idea that paying for online gaming is stupid.
I'm an idiot!
And just like that, you fucked up. Holy shit. Wow. That escalated quickly. My God. I'm at a loss for words here. My popsicle stick is numb. I'm gonna need some chemotherapy after that. Now, do tell me, how is that a myth? Paying for online, something that was free for years, for decades, something that's still free on the PC, something that has been proven time and time again doesn't need to be charged for, doesn't suck.
Sure, you don't pay for online gaming on PC, but there's also no such thing as Xbox Game Pass on PC. I mean, unless you get the PC version of Xbox Game Pass, but that costs money there too. But there's also no such thing as Xbox Game Pass on PC. No such thing as Xbox Game Pass on PC.
I mean, unless you get the PC version of Xbox Game Pass, PC version of Xbox Game Pass, PC version, PC version, PC version, PC version.
So? What does that have to do with paid online? That's a separate service in of itself. Xbox One Game Pass literally has nothing to do with paid online. It's its own separate service. If you want to play online, you still have to pay for the fee. And on top of that, it's nothing more than a rental service. It's basically the Netflix of video games. This has nothing to do with a paid online service. So I really don't give a shit. You know, in the time that you wasted your breath on making that statement, you could have, I don't know, smoked a cigar, breathed into a woman's ear as you slowly made love to her, but instead you made a stupid point. This has nothing to do with paid online.
PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass are both incredible value deals.
That's debatable. I think Xbox One Game Pass is an excellent deal for people who are interested in playing as many games as possible without having to cough up a full price of a retail game. However, one is an online subscription fee, the other is a separate service. How are you not seeing this?
PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass are both incredible value deals, and it's just not a thing that we get in the free package, so to speak.
Wait. Now, I know you've gone full console peasant, so I'm beginning to understand how retarded you are right now, but what do you expect for free? PlayStation Plus and Xbox One Game Pass are not free. They're paid for services that come with things. So of course games are to be expected from both. You wouldn't get those games if you didn't pay for them. The only thing people want from those services is the online subscription. Otherwise they can't play online. Steam doesn't have a subscription fee. Maybe that's your argument, but who cares? That has nothing to do with the online gaming component, which should be free on all platforms regardless. Could have done a little bit of research and also see that on the PC we have Humble Bundle, where there are exceptional deals, and you get to keep the games forever. They're not rented to you, you get to keep them. That's better than paying for a fee where you rent games. Because when you get to keep games, you get to mod them, you get to edit the files, you get to do more things to the game. I'm literally through 5 rolling rocks right now because you are making me suffer with your stupidity.
Add that to the fact that we're getting closer and closer to an on-demand game service that's actually good, and it starts to make more and more sense why you might pay for a service like that.
Paying for a rental service? Sure, I have no problem with that. I don't think a lot of people would either. That's fine. But we're talking about paid online here. So how do these services debunk the myth that paid online doesn't suck or isn't stupid?
Now, that's not to say that one is objectively better than the other, but there are pros and cons to everything in life. Number 3.
That's it. Wow. I cannot think of anything more retarded than defending paid online, which you tried to do and you failed at. Paid online sucks. There's no getting around it. Paying to play your own damn games online on an internet connection that you already paid for, on a console that you already paid for, on a game that you already paid for is stupid. Throwing in games that are quote unquote free doesn't change that. What this is Sony and Microsoft getting free money. The difference between Game Pass and PlayStation Plus is that at least one of those services is actually a service and the other is just an effortless way to get people to pay for online. The majority of console gamers out there will disagree with you on this, GameRanx. They probably heard you say this and thought you were stupid.
Number 3, all console gamers are quote unquote
Filthy casuals.
Now, it isn't untrue that the majority of console gamers aren't casual. Now, I don't think being a casual gamer is a bad thing, so even if people use it as an insult, I would laugh at them. Casual gaming is alright by me. There are a lot of casual PC gamers out there too. This should be a pretty easy myth to debunk. That is, of course, if you're competent enough, but from what we've seen so far, you aren't.
There are a lot of people that complain about the less competitive nature of games that aren't Dota, which, you know, whatever. So you like a game more than another game. good for you.
I think what you mean is MOBAs, because Dota is not the only MOBA in existence, nor the only competitive game. It's true, the competitive nature of games on the PC is much higher than that on the consoles. Therefore, you have a more competitive scene and competitive gamers on the PC. It's not about liking one game more than others. It's about where are the competitive games at? How many more competitive games are there between both the platforms? From here, we can see that console gaming is a much more casual experience. And that's not even a bad thing. I don't think so anyway. But if you want to get very competitive on the pro level, then the PC is where it's at.
It's not even competition that makes gaming hardcore. Somebody could play Dark Souls alone forever. That is hardcore. It's a bit weird, but it's hardcore.
Oh, so now we're going to single player games. I thought there for a minute we were bringing up multiplayer games and the competitive nature of them. Well, if we're going based on single player experience, there are far more hardcore and complex games on the PC without a doubt. That's not even in question. Thus the term casual plebs, which is a joke, not meant to be taken serious.
It's because certain people can only measure their worth in comparison to other people, and that's not healthy.
What is it about you that makes you argue things in such a stupid way? Nobody thinks they are better for playing more hardcore games. Nobody thinks they are better for being competitive. Well, actually, no. People do think they're better for being competitive because the winners are better gamers. And also, no, it's clearly not just Dota that people recognize. It's the numerous amount of competitive games overall on the PC. If you want a less casual experience when it comes to competitive games, you go to the PC. Clearly, saying something like that brings out your inner insecurity. Of course, there are competitive games on both platforms, but overall, there are more on one than the other.
Like, I think competition is fun. Why not have it in games? Why not make it hardcore competition? But pretending that competition itself, or even just one game that happens to be on PC over some of the games on console, is what makes things hardcore? I don't know.
I have no idea where you're going with this point. It kind of feels like you lost track of what you were trying to say and just went on a ramble and are starting to complain about how PC gamers note that certain things on the platform are better than on the console.
And the thing is, it's not just Dota and it's not just PC. It's often exclusives that generate this kind of elitism.
I've lost track of what you're trying to say here. This was a stupid myth, and you did a bad job at debunking it. Let's move on.
Number 2, the idea that consoles are holding back gaming, either in graphics or in general.
Whoa there. You're going to have an incredibly hard time trying to debunk this. This isn't even a myth. This is fact. Developers have come out and stated outright that consoles do hold back gaming overall. The lowest common denominator. That's what the console is. Games have to be programmed to run on a shit ton of hardware out there. Low-end PCs, high-end PCs, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. But if we factor in the most powerful hardware out there that we have access to, games are not designed to predominantly run on it. That's why the Xbox One X is pretty pointless. There are no games exclusively designed for it. It's held back by the Xbox One, which is the main targeted console. AAA developers, they have to program games for the consoles. And keeping that in mind, they have to turn things down, graphically and in scope. That's factual. That's not a myth.
I can't even tell you how many times I've seen people complain about the idea that because console hardware is technically inferior, that games have to be made for them, and that being they're made on technically inferior hardware, they're worse for whatever reason, either graphically or for some other reason. Like, consoles are way too mainstream for me, man. And it's not an irrational accusation by any means, but it doesn't really think about the idea that because money is made off of console games, that games get made at all. Gaming itself is an industry that doesn't care about platforms, it cares about money. And if you like franchises to grow and get bigger, I'm not saying you have to have consoles to do that, but in terms of AAA gaming, where companies are trying to reach the largest audience possible, it allows them to actually put more money aside to make the game in the first place. There is more potential for return, without question, by simply associating a console with it.
Okay, now we're talking about sales and the financial success of these games, which allows games to have sequels that has nothing to do with the graphical fidelity of games being held back, which was the original myth. Just because games sell well due to the fact that there are consoles out there doesn't mean that graphically they aren't held back by those same consoles. So you aren't debunking the myth.
I would argue that if game consoles didn't exist, then computers would end up taking more console-like traits than you probably think they would. There's a certain type of customer that doesn't want to play games on their Windows PC, and they happen to be the majority of customers. They just want to press a button and have the game happen.
Again, this doesn't debunk the myth, or what I like to call the fact, that consoles hold back gaming overall, so you're wasting your breath.
And finally, number 1, all console games have bad frame rates. None of them run at 60 frames per second, and that's all that matters.
Why do you have to lie and make up myths? Did some PC gamers, did they pound you with facts and logic, and you crawled away and decided to strawman them and create myths and make a video to fill your inner insecurities? The myth that games don't run at 60 FPS on console is a non-existent one. With channels like Digital Foundry out there, people have known for a long time that 60 FPS games do exist on console. This is just you making up shit, trying to create an imaginary group of PC gamers that exist so that you can debunk them and feel smart.
Have you played Doom? Have you played Doom on console? Have you played, Doom on console? Or maybe the Wolfenstein games? You played those? There's actually a lot of games that do it, but those are pretty good examples, aren't they? Because they're some of the best games of the last decade.
There's a reason 2.5 thousand people disliked this video, and the number of dislikes is probably gonna grow after this, and that's because you're a dum-dum. At the reveal of these games, people already knew they were gonna run at 60 FPS on the consoles.
Sure, their graphics are a little better on PC. I'm not gonna sit here and say otherwise.
A little. Okay, yeah, sure, buddy, sure.
But this isn't even actually a good reason. If they only played at 30 frames per second, who cares? How does that affect you? But they don't. They play 60 frames per second in 1080p. So,
Who cares? Who cares? A shit ton of people care. It's one of the most requested features out of the advanced version of current consoles. People want a 60 frames per second option. How does it affect you? It certainly affects the way a game is played. It makes the game more responsive, it makes it a smoother experience, and it overall makes the game more enjoyable. So it does matter. You're simply being dismissive about this, because not all games on the consoles run at 60 frames per second. Meanwhile, all of them, every single one on the PC, does and above. So of course you're going to be dismissive about this.
what are some console myths you can debunk? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think.
That's a good question, GameRanx. And to be honest, I couldn't come up with 10 or even 7. Maybe 3 at most I could. Because a lot of things people have to complain about consoles are not myths. With the PC being the most popular platform right now, people can obviously see the flaws of the consoles. You of course couldn't find a lot of these myths, so you had to make up your own. We've already discussed this. I'm not going to repeat myself. You needed someone to argue against, so that you could fill in those insecurities about the mean PC gamers hitting you with facts. I think this is an embarrassment for your channel. I think you do well with deleting it, because I think you guys put out some great videos. But whoever made this video, whoever wrote it and thought this was a good idea, it needs to be yelled at. This is stupid. I didn't ever expect a single one of your writers to go full console peasant. But I'm 25 minutes in, and if you couldn't tell, I've drunk a little bit too much. So before we end the video, I think it'd be a little interesting to tell you guys that I am just a few hundred shy from surpassing Black Bond, or who I would like to call Block Bond. So if you really like this video, I recommend you hit that subscribe button, because it'll be really funny to see him throw a fit about this. I cannot wait to taste his tears. And thank you all for joining me on this, not so delightful console peasant debunking. I'd also like to thank the people's names you see scrolling across the screen. They are amazing people. They are patrons, and they deserve to be recognized for their generosity and the size of their dicks. They're all huge and massive, and I'm not saying that because they gave me money. And as for you watching, you look gorgeous and absolutely sexy. And until then, Papa Frit will be seeing all of you again very, very soon. And when I say very soon, I actually mean it because I'm going on a weekly upload schedule again. So till then, see you all very soon.
Fritanga sucks ass.